If you want to create portraits just like this one right here in oil paints very quickly, there's a very easy method called the layering method that I'd recommend for all people to use, even if you're a beginner or if you're just trying to get faster at painting in general. Now, the first thing that I did is I made a little bit of gray by mixing black and white with my oil paints, and I took a little bit of Gamsol. Now, Gamsol is paint thinner, and I only use a small amount so that the paint will dry faster. Now, when you're creating your undertrace, you want to really focus on the rough lines of everything. So when you look at the reference photo on the right, I'm only mapping out where the eye holes are, the eyebrows, the nose, the lips, and the shape of their hair. Now we're going to focus on all the smaller details later, but I want to ask you right now, where in this photo do you see the darkest areas? Now, this is not a trick question. This is just for you to really envision how you're going to create your underpaintings every single time that you're trying to create one. Now, you always want to focus on the darkest areas first, and then you start to move on to your lighter areas. So this is the first step of the layering process. You see that I put all of the shadows down, such as like the eyebrows, the nose, and around the mouth and the hair. But after you do that, you're going to start to move on to your next darkest color, and you're going to map out where all of those are. So now this is going to cover some more area, and it's going to start to give the photo some more shape, because when you add all the shadows down, then the face will have a structure, but it will look very flat because you don't really have those parts that pop out yet. And also, another good rule of thumb is to let the underpainting dry before you start to move on to your next layers that I'm doing right now, because if your underpainting is still wet, then you have the risk of it smearing. And if you're using like different colors such as like skin tones, it's a little bit easier because I'm using grays over here, so it's not really gonna blend with the underpainting as bad. But if you're creating an underpainting with grays and you're trying to paint skin tones like tan, brown, white, and all that, then the skin tones that you paint over top of the underpainting are gonna blend, and it's not really gonna come out that clean. So give it a few hours, let it dry. You could even give it like 4 or 5 hours, and then you should be pretty good because you mixed it with some of the paint thinner before, so it's going to change the properties of that oil paint. So just to be safe, I would say that you should let it all dry. But now is the third stage that I'm going on right now. I'm just going to start to move on to my lighter areas, which is like the nose and the cheeks, because the cheeks have that nice round shape, and I'm blending everything nicely by using a big brush. I use my small brush whenever I'm creating details on the eyebrows or in the eyes, but when I'm trying to create a nice fade for all the different skin tones and all the different skin structures and those curves, I'm using my large brush. And the way I can get the fade effect with that large brush is by using a clean brush and just lightly grazing against all those colors that you laid down. Because if you have a set of 3 blocks, say you have your black, your gray, and then your white, when you clean off that brush and just lightly graze against all those 3 colors, the black, the gray, and the white, then you're going to have that nice smooth fade transition. And you want to have a clean brush, because if you mix a little bit of your other colors onto a place that you don't want it to be, then you'll have to clean that up and you'll have to restart all over again. But this stage that I'm going over right now is using my whites for all the highlights that I see on the face. I'm going to put the reference photo back on the screen so you can see those really highlights that pop out the most out of the picture. So now is the time that I'm using those, and I'm also using my large brush for this as well because I want everything to blend nicely. But after I do all that, then it's time for me to use my blacks, because the blacks are very like potent color. It's very sharp and it stands out a lot. So you need to be very careful with how you lay down your blacks, especially in a photo that has a lot of whites in it, and I don't want anything to get messed up. So that's why I go in with my blacks last, because it really just makes everything deep set instead of having like very surface level stuff. That's when I go over with my blacks at the end. So after the blacks, you're pretty much finished with the photo. It's just about adding some touch-ups from now. So now you see this layering process in action. So if you're able to implement this as well, I hope you guys enjoy it. And also make sure that you keep on practicing, because the first time that you do it is not going to come out perfect. Trust me, I already know how painting goes. I've been painting for a couple years now, and I wasn't anywhere near as good as how I am right now. But I just fell in love with the process, because when you do something and you start to get good at it, then you really start to enjoy it and you start to get into your flow state and just block everything out, and you're able to just create anything that you imagine. And I think that's just such a beautiful thing. So I want to pass all this information down to you guys, and I want to help you guys out so you can find enjoyment in art, and so you can also find some sort of purpose in the stuff that you create. So I want to invite you to my emailing list in the description over there, and over here you're going to get that free 7-step guide on how to paint portraits perfectly every single time. And you're also going to get access to me, because I'm going to launch a coaching, and here's how you're going to get early access to my art coaching. So I'm going to be there for any questions that you have. If you have any sort of difficulties, or you just need somebody to be there for you, just so you have like a backbone during this process, because it can get tough at times, and you just need to keep on pushing through, just keep on practicing, and just believe in yourself at the end of the day, because this is something that pays off a lot, and I'm able to get into my flow state, and I just love what I do so much. So I want to invite you all to that right there in the description if you're interested, and I want to thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.